Welcome back. No, it is not your imagination. We are stressed out. Get this, the American Psychological Association says for the first time in 11 years, more than 63% of Americans say they are more stressed out about politics and the future of the nation than about money, but not by a lot. 62% of Americans say that they are stressed out over money too. And joining us for more is Dr. Janet Taylor of Centerstone Behavioral Healthcare. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us. The interesting thing about this research is that the rise in stress levels is statistically significant, and the APA goes on to say it's not just young adults, it's all adults across all generations and across all party affiliations.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, you think if you participate in your life, you will have things that stress you out. And certainly thinking about finances or being unhappy about the results of an election or feeling pressure will cause stress. But it's important to understand stress is just a word. What's most important is how it impacts you, how it makes you feel, in the sense of, do your hands get sweaty? Do you feel like you can't breathe? Do you get headaches? It's important for individuals to understand when they're stressed and how it impacts them.
Well, let's break this down a little bit, because what I have observed is, if just take the election, it has impacted relationships. I mean, I have seen marriages that it has impacted, brothers and sisters, and just people who are very close friends, and that can have physical ramifications for people.
Well, absolutely, because stress is not just in your head. And so if you think about the pressures of feeling like someone thinks differently than you, or feeling out of control, or the uncertainty, then that can cause you to feel stressed and feel anxiety. And so the reality is it's not just in our heads. And when people feel chronically stressed, that unending, it doesn't break stress, it can make your blood pressure go up. You release blood glucose into your bloodstream, so it can increase, if you have diabetes, can worsen than that, lead to heart attacks, lead to headaches, and lead to anxiety and chronic anxiety and depression. So it's real.
Why do you think that this is, when we're just talking about some of the anxiety that people are feeling over politics? We've always had partisan politics. Back during the Vietnam War, those were certainly very difficult times. Why does this seem to be more of a problem now than ever before? Well,
my personal opinion is that there's so much at stake, because the politics now feels personal. It's meant, in my opinion, to divide us based on our ethnicity or sexual orientation, and it just feels really personal and out of control. And it's that out of control uncertainty aspect that leads to stress when you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if you are having trouble with money, maybe you can get a second job, maybe you can save more, you can plan to do it. But with the political climate that we're in now, it just feels like we're at the mercy of someone, and a lot of people actually, in terms of really making decisions about things that will impact not only us, but our children.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on anxiety and politics and money right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about anxiety and depression, which seems to be on the increase, and it doesn't have anything to do with our politics and our economy. And joining us for more is Dr. Janet Taylor of Centerstone Behavioral Healthcare. I want to continue on that for a moment, because, again, going back to the American Psychological Association annual stress survey, something that you actually mentioned, that particularly the stress is up with marginalized groups who may see themselves as targets, undocumented individuals, immigrants, women with sexual assault history, and children.
I mean, people who are already stressed anyway, and that's the thing that people don't realize, in the sense of, you can have one stressor, whether it's worrying about if you're undocumented or if you've had a previous incident that leads to stress, but it adds up and adds up and adds up. And that's where it's really incumbent upon you as the individual to recognize what the stressors are, and to take control over what you can take control over, and also try to figure out what space you put those other things that you can't control in. So therefore, if you notice that something just has you so upset and stressed out that it's impacting your ability to work or your ability to go to school or raise your kids, it's really a big red flag that you need to talk to someone about what's going on.
But here's the thing. And this is the pivot I wanted to make. A dear friend that I talked to recently, who needed some help, tried to get an appointment, and was basically couldn't get an appointment for weeks. And I'm wondering if that's just the way it is, or if so many people are stressed out and finding need to talk to somebody that therapists are having a hard time, with all the business.
Well, it's a great irony, because if you look at depression, which we've mentioned, and depression is if you have a sad mood that lasts longer than 2 weeks. In addition, maybe you have trouble sleeping, your appetite, some people overeat, some people undereat, you might have suicidal thoughts, or you lose your usual interest in doing things. We know about depression, but in spite of that, almost 70% of people are either untreated or undertreated. So as a psychiatrist, I want more people to come in so that we can treat them, so that people don't suffer alone. And anxiety is the same way. Some people feel like they're so chronically stressed, they're always so overwhelmed that they feel like that's their normal state, and it's not.
But the problem is, as I said, it doesn't help if you can't get an appointment. And some people have health insurance that covers this kind of service. Some people don't.
Right. Well, and that's a real factor, because when you finally make that decision to go in and you call and you have to wait a month or 2 months or 3 months, it can be a deterrent. However, if you can't get in to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, you can always start with your medical doctor, your primary care physician, a nurse practitioner, even a PA can help diagnose what's going on with you and get you started on treatment if you need it, or at least help you identify what may be going on. Because all stress is not just in our head. There are medications that can cause you to feel anxious or stressed. If you have underlying thyroid disease or infections, even some cancer, some of the presenting symptoms can be stress. So it's important that when you feel anxious, you feel stressed, you feel out of sorts, that you have a physical exam, get blood work, and also talk to your doctor.
You make an important point, because we've been talking about stress over the political climate or because of the economic situation, but there are medical reasons also that people have stress, anxiety, and even depression, which you may not know unless you get other kinds of testing.
Exactly. So it's really important that we are the chief in control of our bodies and know when we're feeling good, and when something's wrong, hopefully we can go in and talk to someone. And being uninsured, being underinsured is a problem, but there are always resources, and within this community there are resources for people who may be uninsured. Even at Centerstone, we work on a sliding scale. We work with a number of people who may not have health insurance. So don't isolate yourself. Don't feel like you're alone. Make a call, come in, and at least try to see someone.
But are we still in a situation that some people feel stigmatized if they reach out for help and will not do so just because of that?
Absolutely, and stigma is a huge barrier for mental health treatment. I mean, look at that horrible tragedy that happened in Texas recently, and the first thing that was said was, clearly this was not a gun problem, he had a mental health problem. The facts weren't in, and so when you label people who may have a mental health problem, who may have a diagnosis, as violent, as people that we don't want in society, that adds another layer to people seeking treatment. And the bottom line is, we're one body. It's medical, it's physical, it's mental, and if you have a mental illness, almost 50% of Americans have a diagnosable mental illness. And it doesn't mean you have depression, it doesn't mean that you're schizophrenic, but that you may have anxiety, you may have an adjustment disorder. So we have to stop stigmatizing people and suggest that they get treatment, because we know hurt people hurt people. And we have to create a society that's more tolerant and a society that is more open to getting treatment.
The situation with the shooter in Texas, a lot of people are saying after the fact, boy, this guy was trouble for many, many years. On the other hand, as we saw in Jess's story, a lot of people live this kind of private agony where their coworkers, family and friends do not know what's going on inside. And that makes it more difficult in terms of seeking help from family and friends and loved ones.
Absolutely. It's another layer of stress to have a diagnosis. And most of us, we want to be normal. We want to be loved. We want to be accepted. When you do something, like for instance, if you have a mental illness and you're at the dinner table and you might have a normal anger outbursts. It's normal. But people are like, did you take your medicine? What's wrong with you? And so as family members, we have to be more open and recognize the things that we say to our family members who may be in treatment that may be hurtful. So it really is about being aware, and we have to lose the stigma. One of the ways to lose the stigma is to have conversations like this. I mean, we know there are millions of individuals who suffer from anxiety, from depression, who have a mental illness. And instead of shunning them, let's get them treated and let's accept them.
I think the best thing about the conversation that we're having tonight is one person may be watching this right now who will either seek help, or a loved one will say, you know what, maybe that's what has been going on there, and offer their hand out there. We are going to continue our conversation. We're just going to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. And it's time for final thoughts. In situations where people exhibit anxiety or depression, and it's suddenly onset because of a place or time in their life, or what's happening in politics, or their personal economic situation, in some cases, is it something that is solvable, that they deal with it and they're not going to have to worry about it later?
In most cases, it's solvable. And you think about anxiety or depression or a sad mood as a symptom, and you want to try to understand the underlying cause. Some people may not be able to figure it out, but others can usually tie it to something that may be happening in their life. You know, an election, a change in a relationship, or finances. And so once you understand the symptom, then understand maybe what's causing it or not. Know that it's treatable. It may be treatable with a medication that can help curb the symptoms of feeling like you're jumping out of your chest or panicking. And then also using talk therapy or psychotherapy, practicing mindfulness, which means at the onset of the symptom, you take deep breaths, connect your breath to your thoughts and just let your thoughts flow. And then medication. There are medications that help with anxiety. Some of the medications, unfortunately, people can get addicted to, but there are a number of medications like antidepressants and other non-benzodiazepine, which is like a controlled substance, medications that can help. But you really want to talk to your healthcare practitioner. Don't feel like you have to go it alone.
Right. So, and we only have a couple of seconds left, but what some people say in terms of these medications is that it affects other aspects of their thinking or behavior, and they don't want that.
Yeah, every medication has a potential side effect, but that's why you need to have a good relationship with your healthcare provider so you can check in and find a way to help yourself feel better, because help is there.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Alan.
Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on the new hotline for veterans. Back in August, President Trump created a veterans hotline to help vets voice their concerns about the Veterans Administration. Sounds like a great idea, right? Well, the hotline has a long wait time and can be near impossible to get through to. We went to Facebook to hear your thoughts about the hotline. Michael says, if the president created it and he is in full support of the military and its vets, you would think that he would have done a better job in making sure it works properly, right? Isn't everything he does supposed to be the best? Renee says, maybe none of us want to admit how bad the situation is for the vets, and this hotline just started in August. The DOD should have had something going like this for years. Let's hope they add staff and beef it up. And Megan says, this is what liberals fight for, government-administered health care. Megan, if anybody needs help from the government, it would be our vets, don't you think? Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And remember, for updates on your national and local breaking news, you can download the latest version of our app. Android users will get the update automatically, but iPhone users need to go to the App Store and re-download the app. Just search for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Dr. Janet Taylor is with the Centerstone Behavioral Healthcare.